What's going on, gamers? We got a video here by Digital Foundry highlighting on Satya Nadella's projection on next gen and the competition of TikTok. And is it really plausible? So we're going to get into this. It's going to be interesting to see their point of view. And we're going to ask stuff along the way. We know about the GTA 6 delay, but hey, you know what I mean? I don't really care. There's so much in this world that, it's like, okay, is that what's only on your brain? Let's get into this.
Okay, so it seems that a week can't pass without some new type of Microsoft controversy. This week, Satya Nadella gave an interview where, basically there's a lot of comments about how Xbox isn't actually competing with other consoles, actually competing with TikTok. I think that's been slightly taken out of context, but there's also some
Exactly, because who are you? You ain't that big. Your platform is dead. So who are you competing with? What makes you think you can move to something like that too? This is what I mean about like the delusion of the misguided arrogance that like you don't deserve to be arrogant. You're not that good. You lose at everything. So kind of dumb.
intriguing comments here about the nature of the next generation console. There's been reporting from Windows Central, which basically sort of was trying to put together everything we know about the next generation consoles, which is to say it's a hybrid PC that runs other stores. I'm not sure the extent to which that is news. I feel like we've been talking about that for a very, very long time now.
That is kind of funny if you think
But
about
again,
it.
there were some comments from Nadella about that as well. Comments that I don't fully understand. But Oliver, maybe you could clue me in.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing here because he's talking about how console's an unparalleled experience, and then he's talking about, we're looking forward to the next console, the next PC gaming, which is not quite grammatical and doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think that, Satya is kind of not so subtly hinting at the future direction of Xbox and the fact that it is going to be a Windows business based computer, because as he says here, the biggest gaming business is the Windows business. Now, I find that kind of funny because like he is saying that, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think that Windows is like a huge business. Obviously, it's a huge business in gaming. But as Satya himself admits, Microsoft is not the publisher, the key platform holder in PC gaming at the moment. That's Steam. Steam is the key publisher in PC gaming.
Yeah,
is
fair
the
point. Yeah.
key platform holder.
Yeah, that's a very good way to start off things, Oliver. Everything he just said makes so much sense. And then about some statements that Satya is saying, but it's kind of like PR talk because he notices the obvious. It's not hard to figure out Windows is a big gaming platform because of Steam, not because of Microsoft. They don't make anything. They mess up everything. And that his projection into TikTok too is delusional because it's like you're never going to be able to compete with that anyways because you're never going to be bigger than Steam. Nobody's going to leave Steam for you. Nobody likes your enforced garbage AI creep system. And you're trying to integrate it even more, lock off people from Windows 10. And you guys kind of get the point. Windows Store was never good. It was always dumpster fire. And now you want to start improving things when it's too late, when everybody else was kind of taking to that. But if it was up to them, it would have just died off and there would be no Windows gaming. You see what I mean? It was Steam that had to do that, along with their Linux operating system that they got running with Proton, over with GOG coming into it and giving people a retro paradise in that sort of sense. Whereas Microsoft comes in as always like a snake and tries to slide in on somebody else's success, try to act like they're relevant, and then start arrogantly deceiving themselves, talking about TikTok and making this an Xbox. Like, no, you failed on every end imaginable. You can't succeed. All these are successful businesses that you want to put your face in so that you can act like you're relevant. No, you're a loser, and you always will be. That's just Microsoft to me. And you have to monopolize. Let me tell you something, guys. So yesterday I went to do dual boot with Linux, right? And I was at Best Buy and I went in there. Just hear me out. And the guys there told me that they can't even speak about anything other than Windows 11, or they can get fired. And that only Windows 11 is possible to be in the store, and nothing else can even be talked about. And they're basically saying, yeah, Microsoft is monopolizing that, and they're closing off any other operating system. That's what they did in the 90s. They're not as legit as you think they are. It's a scumbag company. Let's continue, though.
Holder, I should say, in PC gaming. So that makes them kind of an imperfect driver and an imperfect beholder of the success in that industry. If the industry moves towards more of a PC first focus, especially with the next generation Xbox, and especially if, as has been reported innumerable times, you'll be able to install Steam on the next generation Xbox just as easily as you can on the ROG Ally device. And I have to say, on the ROG Ally devices, it's very, very easy to install Steam. Set that as the default and never ever look at the Xbox experience again necessarily. You don't need to look at that too much. That's certainly a development that I think undercuts their stake in the PC platform potentially. But yeah, I think there is probably something to this notion that short form video is competing with gaming, just in the sense that it's competing for time, and time is that kind of exhaustible resource that everyone is trying to pursue, is trying to chase here. But I do kind of wonder like what the future of gaming looks like if you're looking at TikTok as a main competitor, because TikTok is really scratching an itch with that short form content. I quite enjoy TikTok, I must admit, but it really does satisfy a certain kind of dopamine rush. It gives you that really short form instant gratification.
My problem with that is that it trains people to have a short attention span. That's not necessarily good. Definitely, if you need to learn something and be aware, you're giving people, you know what I mean, disorders in that sense. If you kind of look at the mass, because when you look at the horde, most of them are stupid. They're not smart. You see what I mean? This is why there needs to be leaders. This is why they look up to things, because they cannot lead themselves. So they'll always just destroy everything and just be brainwashed. So that's why I'm never for the people leading, because like they're stupid. No. And yes, short term is huge. I see it on YouTube as well. But that's because somebody's into it. You could be the type of person to say, I don't care about shorts, so it will not affect me. That's why I say you can't 100% solidify that as something that is your competitor when your content is not short form content. I think short form content is going to be competing with things similar in that category. Yes, it takes your time. Like sports can take your time. Taking a shower can take your time. But we can't necessarily say that they directly compete with each other. Like I was telling people with, if I played 2K and I was playing some basketball player and I wasn't watching NBA, do you think that they're going to be mad? Like, no, you play me on the screen, you know what I mean? And interactive, and you may run to this other player, you might want to watch that, you know what I mean? They can cooperate together. There could be cooperative time sinks rather than just only competitive time sinks. But for Microsoft being in a position that they are, and I know Sean Layden said the same thing too, and I did not agree with it, because I'm like, dude, the only way you're going to say that is because you feel like that's the biggest thing and you want your platform to feel like that's what it's competing with. Microsoft in a worse situation, thinking that somehow TikTok's going to affect you. No, you destroyed yourself. That's like saying that because shorts are so big, Nintendo is going to lose sales, but they sold more than ever. You see what I mean? It doesn't work for everything. It is literally a flawed objective statement. It is not objective. It is subjective, and it depends on the situation. So you cannot objectify that. No.
The algorithm has a very good idea of what your preferences are, what you want to see. And so I kind of think like if you're looking at new interactive experiences, as Satya is talking about here, they might be able to compete with that. It probably looks more like something like a TikTok with kind of interactive gaming experiences that you swipe through or something like this, than it looks like a AAA, $60 title. Or maybe it looks a little bit like Fortnite, one of these.
Sounds like WarioWare to me.
Yeah, so WarioWare,
exactly. That is a genius statement. Oh my God, that made my day, because I know exactly what he's talking about. That is absolutely funny. Yeah, clown stuff for sure, and the upside down. And then backwards. Oh man, that was great.
Like an AI WarioWare or something. Perhaps that's what it looks like. I'm not sure that's a great future for the industry, but I could certainly see something like that having the same addictive potential, because that really is the key to TikTok, that swiping behavior, seeing something new, and then the algorithmic delivery of new content that's tailored to your tastes. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe that's a bit of a bleak.
But that's the thing though, like that type of stuff to me is like a huge gamble. You know what I mean? And it's a way to try to look for something because you can't compete anywhere else. I'm calling that for Microsoft. Sony said that, and Lane said that because he's just looking at trends. I said, this is trend stuff. You know what I mean? And life always has different trends. You never know how trends can change. But I get what some people are saying in a way. I'm not saying I wholly disagree with something that is going to take that much of your time all day, that it's not distracting you, but you're doing it because that's what you like. If you don't like it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect you. You see what I mean? Like a Nintendo, like, man, I don't care about that. I will never watch no shorts. You know what I mean? No, I want to be on here all day. And it doesn't affect them. But if you're trying to objectify it by a scientific hypothesis of this is how much of humanity is feeding into social media through this algorithm, like I said, I understand what you're trying to say. But you guys get what I'm saying too about direct head-to-head competition. No, Microsoft's worst competition is their own stupidity outside of PlayStation. Because they just destroy themselves. You know what I mean? That's like Apple saying, I'm worried about shorts. Why? When your whole device is going to have them all over it. It can sync together. See what I mean? That sync Cell phones all syncing. It's all syncing. They're not wasting each other's time. They are making their platforms bigger because more people want that to use that short form algorithm. It just depends on how you look at it. Like I said, there's not one way to look at things. Sometimes it's good to broaden your perspective. Just saying.
Weak vision, but I could definitely see Satya and a lot of executives in the boardroom trying to plan out for that vision. And even in that case, I don't think Microsoft is necessarily well positioned because Microsoft does not do social media applications.
Exactly.
Yeah, they do some of the back-end stuff. They're working on some of the technologies that power kind of machine learning technologies that could power a gaming experience that is enabled by machine learning technologies. But they're not necessarily in the driver's seat for that kind of innovation either. So I'm not totally sure where Satya sees their business. I think they're well positioned to be a massive publisher in AAA. They're well positioned to deliver Call of Duty across many platforms, but they're maybe not as well positioned to be like a huge platform holder in the era of PC gaming, or potentially trying to seize some like social media zeitgeist gaming app or something that might emerge in the future. I'm not sure they're necessarily too well positioned.
I think it's worth pointing out that this stuff about TikTok actually came from Xbox's Matt Booty last week, I believe. The headline here from Video Games Chronicle: Xbox's biggest competition isn't another console, but TikTok and movies.
Fire.
Claims exec. I mean, it's there's nothing really new here. Gaming's competition is competition with whatever it is that occupies people's free time, and it can be like TV, movies, doom scrolling on your phone, whatever. But gaming.
Yeah, Netflix is a threat to gaming. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I want to play my games and I want to enjoy some Netflix at night because that's a balance of my life. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? You may have like a lady friend, or you may just want to watch by yourself. You know what I mean? This is things where you're like, this is what I'm going to do today. Then I want to go get some food. You got to eat. You know what I mean? It's like, and then you see people come in and you just say dumb, damage controlling nonsense. And I'm like, I used to like when everybody intelligent was saying something to help the industry grow, not these morons coming in the industry just projecting delusion way too much, and people are somehow supporting it. And it's just annoying because there's so much fraud and fakeness that it's sickening at this point.
Gaming is quite different. It's a different kind of pursuit there. So, with all of this discussion about TikTok, John, I just hope you've got a bucket ready for you to throw up into.
This is why I like watching Digital Foundry, because they're always intelligent. Like, I really like their discussions. They have good ideas in their headlines. It's not scripted, and it's legit. And they're really like intellectually, you know what I mean, just superior on certain things. Where it's like, and I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean like they're more honest, and it's really about gaming, and it's really open, honest discussion. They're not gaslighting. They're not being stupid fanboys. They're just having an open, nerdy talk, and you can have good conversations like that and good feedback and communication, rather than just this extreme fanboy fanatic behavior. They help gaming.
But what do you make of these comments?
The TikTok comment was extremely revealing to me. Like you say, this is nothing new. We know that they're competing for your time, but this really puts into sharp focus how much somebody like Matt Booty views their games business is. They are they're competing for your engagement. That's what they want.
Yeah.
And while that is technically true, if you think about the games industry as a whole over the years, you can't imagine somebody like back in the day creating some of the masterpieces that we beloved. Like when Metal Gear Solid was created, we'll say, do you think that the marketing execs were thinking like, we need to compete with films because we're trying to compete with time? It was more about, we need to make a product that will sell X number of units in order to fund making other cool things. And
exactly, because that's how it works in the gaming world. And when people keep on getting bigger and bigger, they weren't worried about something in a different algorithm and in a whole different world that would not affect them whatsoever. But they were building their own paradise to grow just as big. And if they thought like that, they would have never got past it. But guess what? Now video games is bigger than all those industries combined together. You see what I mean? Because it was the video game aspect that did that. It was the internal aspect and the teams, the development, what they needed to do in there to not make those mistakes. You see what I mean? That's what mattered. That was irrelevant to their growth. That wouldn't have stunted or anything. No. Them doing what they needed to do, doing all the right things, is what made it great. Not breaking apart, not laying off people, managing your budget, really caring about video games. You know, you had real people in there with heart and soul. You know what I mean? Taking your time, you know, having a good director, having a good writer, having high replay value, all these things that really matter. That's what's going to make you succeed. Not worrying about some imaginary competition that does not exist
They
in your
were
world.
employing creatives to create these cool things, and
Mm-hmm.
people liked cool things, hence why you would
Mm-hmm.
employ those creatives,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was all just, it was a simple thing based on like, make a cool thing. It's not about how long you play it, it's about that experience of playing it, and what mattered was how much you sold. Well, more like what mattered is how much you made in reflection to how much you spent to make the thing, and balancing that equation was key. And that's what allowed a lot of creatives to just do their thing, and that's what the console industry used to be. But then, of course, the rise of these sort of forever games and just the way things are these days, the internet, it has become a competition for time, so to speak. And it seems that so if these execs are only thinking about that versus like just selling units or just making the money, they're not okay with just making money to recoup costs. They want to make all the money. And I get that from a business perspective, but it just sort of sucks the soul out of what gaming was about, right? And so if your company is being driven by people with this mindset, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. I would say,
Like he said, yeah, because you're not focusing on the soul and heart of thing. It's not what you love to make it grow internally. You're thinking about chasing another trend again, a wild goose chase, because you have failed in every other category. As I said, this is just failure projections. That's all it is, to try to make it seem like this is the thing, and this is bigger than all that, so I don't have to compete. You can't compete. You suck. You know what I mean? That's what it is. Like, it's nothing else. And you're only saying that because your ego's trying to massively project the biggest thing in the world and hope that you're going there next. You can't compete with anything. Mm-hmm. And that is the truth. You see? Whereas you look at those that would never project something stupid like that, like Nintendo, look at how much they're succeeding. And they're selling more than ever and having the biggest sales of all time. But the value and the price of those consoles is more expensive than the other ones. So they're making more money than ever. That is irrelevant. You see what I mean? That is not going to get in Nintendo's way. And it won't get in Sony's way. You see what I mean? Because that's not going to affect you. And somebody that says it, like I said, you're just not understanding the soul and the way things work in the gaming industry. Gaming is in competition with itself. It can destroy itself, nothing else.
this is not the mindset within Nintendo. If you look at what Nintendo in Japan is probably thinking, they're not sitting there thinking we need to get X amount of time from our users. We must extract as much time as possible so that they play Switch for this amount of time. That's not what they're making games for.
Oh yeah,
is my guess. And I think this poisonous thinking is precisely what led Sony down that dark path of the forever game, which has failed. I think this is the mindset of Jim Ryan and the investors and everything that was happening within PlayStation that caused them to end up in the situation. Like, yes, they're selling a lot of units, but we know that they're not producing as efficiently as they used to, and a lot of that's down to studios being railroaded by this forever game nonsense and then having the rug pulled out from under them. And all of that stems from this mindset about just investing to get, you're only making the game to get people's time because you want them to stay in that game and just keep spending money, and that's it. That's the goal. And I think that sucks. I really hate that attitude, and I think it's poisonous and bad for games.
Yes.
I don't think there's necessarily something wrong with having games that keeps people going, but it's become so, I don't know, man. I really don't like this attitude. And
a soulless goose chase where anybody that goes into that tanks down and everything goes bad and they lose their identity trying to chase something. When you were already successful sticking to what you were as a PlayStation studio, you know what I mean? A PlayStation company. Not getting caught up in that Western garbage like Square did when they fell down, Capcom did when they fell down, they all recovered. Every time they do is they lose their identity. And they get greedy and they try to grab more of your time and grab more money. Then you forget that that's not what gaming was about. When Microsoft's trying to monopolize everything, you forget that's not what gaming's about. Now you're out of the industry. You know what I mean? The console race. All that money, all that monopoly did not work. Gaming does not work that way. Stop being morons and understand the picture.
It's soured me on a lot on the future, but thankfully we do still have developers both in the indie and the big AAA, AA space that clearly just want to make cool games, and
Exactly.
they're able to do that, and they're able to make enough money to keep that going.
See, we're saying they're in the gamer spirit and they're not getting chased out of that into some other worldly trend and all this nonsense that's full of ignorance and stupid people that China sit over there laughing at so they can brainwash you and keep you dumb with their app and keep their people disciplined. That's the result of it. Soulless garbage. Of course, Microsoft wants to taste that because you are soulless garbage.
So I'm fighting for them, basically.
Well, can you just imagine Warner Brothers or latterly Universal?
Not all this garbage and degeneracy all around, because that's where that stuff leads to. And that's why I said, that's not what I want for gaming. You don't see Nintendo ever say that, because they know the heart and soul of gaming. They want to keep it clean. They want to keep it spiritually animated. And they want to keep it in the high ground. They want to keep it alive, prosperous, and selling. They want to keep its identity that always made it get to where it needed to get to. That's what I'm talking about, this identity. When you do that, you're losing your identity and you're chasing a temporary ghost trend that may not work for you. Just because it's succeeding there, you don't know how they got there to that success. And people try it, and then what happens? It's like people try to be like Nintendo. People try to be like this, and every time that happens, nothing good ends up happening. It doesn't work.
Into Christopher Nolan, hey, this Oppenheimer, it's looking really awesome, right? But have you seen TikTok? Have you seen the amount of time people are scrolling through TikTok? It's just like, come on. If you make a quality experience that demands your time, that earns your time, then that's basically it, right?
You should be saying, well, I'm playing this good game all day. I don't want to scroll to this game next. I don't want to scroll to that game next. I don't scroll. It doesn't work that way. That's a stupid mindset. That's why I said that's mindless and soulless scrolling activity, which is stupid, endless memes. You're being puppeted and memed. That's what it is. And you're getting a short attention disorder out of it. So some people, and they can't pay attention to anything, and they have no receptivity. That's not good. And China's sitting in the back laughing at you. So we get this idea here that is a very good statement that he just said.
I think there's room for both. One thing I would look at is something like the music industry. Like sometimes I enjoy just like putting music on random and listening to all kinds of stuff streamed from all over.
See, now that's different. The music arguing with that makes sense. Or like some GTA walking up and, I can understand that to a certain extent, but you see what I mean? That goes back to the ignorant stuff.
All over the place, and that can be fun. But there's also the art of the album, where you sit down and listen to an album through, and that experience is very different, and I think still very special. And I think if we had completely lost the album, we would be losing something major about what makes music so enjoyable. So my fear would be gaming going so far down this hole of just competing only for your engagement that everything turns into this like mush, where it's just like slop, especially with the rise.
Go ahead and call it out, buddy. It's Microsoft soulless AI slop, and now you're looking at the same thing with the algorithm and the AI and the machine learning doing that, because they're garbage and they have no soul and they can't help anything grow, and they keep on trying to imagine themselves to be next to something that they're nowhere in that league, but they have more money than everyone, and that's pathetic. Like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you guys think. This was fantastic. I'm glad this went up. Peace.